11 is actually 3. Now, to get to the roots of this theory, we have to go back all the way to 1938 and a guy named Albert Hofmann. He was a scientist and a chemist, and in his lab he discovered something quite amazing. He discovered a new synthetic drug called lysergic acid diethylamide, or more easily pronounced LSD. Now, LSD turned out to have quite some extraordinary capabilities. It was a hallucinogenic who enhanced emotions and gave the user euphoric sensations, enhancing their serotonin and dopamine receptor activity. The dopamine part is extra important because it's typical of LSD, but not so typical of other synthetic hallucinogens. So in the 1960s, a lot of hippies thought this was an amazing drug because it was thought to have no addictive properties, and it was experimental and recreational and not like cocaine or heroin or any of the other bad drugs as they would have thought back then. But during this time, there was a lot of scientific experiments, and those showed that LSD also increased anxiety, heart problems, and PTSD. So it wasn't all good. And this is where we come to prenatal exposure. Although this wasn't encouraged or even in scientific studies, mothers still did use LSD during pregnancy in the 1960s. So babies had something called prenatal exposure to LSD, and that turned out to be mutagenic. So there were a lot of mutations in heart, head, brain, eyes, and a lot of body parts which did not develop properly due to LSD use. However, there were few studies, and most of them were retrospective with mothers using other drugs, and they were very unsure of the doses. 11 herself was exposed to LSD and exposed prenatally. So she didn't have any harmful effects, but could be because they were very small doses. Prenatally, let's say 11's grandmother was using LSD during the 1950s, and she happened to be pregnant with 11's mom during this period, which would mean that 11's mom was also prenatally exposed to LSD. Now, turn to 1970. The company which did the experiment finds 11's mom and recruits her, fully knowing that she's pregnant, turning her into a second generation of experimental subjects having their babies exposed to LSD. So in terms, 11's grandmother and 11's mother were both using LSD during pregnancy and were a part of an experimental group, which makes 11 the third generation in this experiment. If we look at what mutation means, it means mutations in the DNA. So 11 is a third generation mutation, which means that she might have mutated sufficiently in neurocognitive genes. Neurocognitive is not really a strong term because it's not really scientifically proven, but it could be the case. And her electromagnetic manipulative abilities might stem from being that third generation, because it is shown that LSD activates the brain in a certain manner that isn't available to the human unless it uses LSD to reach a higher level of consciousness. To further back it, O11 is binary for 3, which got this theory going in the first place. So we come to theory 2, and this one is a juicy one. So you should have a cup of coffee and sit down and clear your mind, because this one is a heavy one. Upside down is actually parallel. If you're familiar with quantum theories, you know there is a thing called quantum worlds, which in layman's terms, and I am a layman, means that there is infinite number of worlds or infinite number of dimensions. So let's say you want to dye your hair blonde or black. If you choose blonde, in another world you'll choose black. And for every choice, you make another choice in another dimension, and so on infinitely. Now, in this context, we have world A. So this is the world we start at, where Joyce is divorced and Will is a lovable nerd, and his brother Jonathan is a creative photographer. This is the world we know and follow in Stranger Things. Then we have world B, the upside down, as we think is upside down, where Joyce is probably married and blonde, and Will is still a lovable nerd, so that is the same, but Jonathan is popular. So everything is same, but different, slightly different. As we can see in the shots, the world is desolate there. And then we have world C. It's Earth, but Earth has developed very differently due to certain choices made by gravity and the universe and its position in the solar system. So Earth has no humans, and the Demogorgon are happy there, but life doesn't exist as we know it. And in this world, we can imagine that there are certain possibilities that aren't available for world A and B. Now, in Stranger Things, we don't only have world A and B, we actually have world C. In the series, Eleven, through her consciousness, opens a portal to world C, where the Demogorgon is. The Demogorgon senses that this is a possibility. Perhaps I can open portals too, and opens a portal through world B to world A. So it has an access to both worlds. It ends up first in world B, where it sees that I can harvest this world, and ends up destroying it, killing all humans in it, as we can see in the shots. But does it eat the humans? Probably not, because we don't actually see it eat any humans. What we see it do is use humans to lay larvae, and it uses the larva to gain more power to open portals. It spreads through worlds to harvest energies. So this is probably what the Demogorgon does with world B. So in the series, world C is not seen, but we have world A and B, which is the upside down, where everyone is dead. And the Demogorgon ends up with a lot of dead bodies, but lack of harvested energy. So it realizes that I have to go to world A and take some humans to world B, where I can use them to harvest more energy and lay more larvae, and I can procreate. So this is what the Demogorgon does to Will and to everyone else. In the process, it kills Barb because it is ready with the harvesting. So how does Eleven travel if she isn't a Demogorgon? Well, as we mentioned, she has mutational abilities to affect electromagnetic fields, i.e. she affects energy, which is necessary for traveling through different dimensions. And her brain is different, so she can do this to her consciousness with her, with her mutations. And she travels quite through her consciousness to different places. So she is able to use her mind to go through these portals. But she also traveled to the world C with the Demogorgon in the end, because she was powerful enough to take it physically all the way to the other world. And this is how it ends. She takes her body there and the Demogorgon's body there. Whether or not she stays there is quite an unsolved question, but in the end, as we see that the sheriff gives her food, she probably travels back and forth. So how does the Demogorgon do it? Well, probably something with its skin or the body harvests energy. So it can travel through different portals and is very powerful, and doesn't just have to use its consciousness. It can use its entire body because it's very smart. And that is why it needs its larva to harvest more and more energy to be able to go through portals. The slugs, well, they are everywhere. If you see in World B, they cover everything. But they also become energy. They are a source of energy for the Demogorgon. And it doesn't eat the humans because it needs them to procreate the slugs. So how does it end? Why does Will see the other world? Well, Will has a slug inside of him, probably several slugs. Will can open portals because he himself can harvest that energy. He himself doesn't see that he's coughing up the slug. He just thinks that he's hallucinating. Well, this was just a few theories. I would love to hear yours. And for references and comments and the studies we've mentioned here, please visit scifilab.com. Thank you so much for listening to this and for watching this video. And I hope you have a great time until season 2 comes and we'll see how right or wrong we are. Thank you.